So, hey, Carolina, this is so much fun. Thank you for inviting me to be the interviewer on your own podcast, Beyond the Hustle. So, you and I did a podcast together this summer, I think, on Beyond the Hustle.
Yes,
and
we did.
it was so fun, right? You and I are definitely cut from the same cloth. We have a lot of the same values about people being able to intentionally design their lives rather than just kind of being caught up in the currents of life taking you where it might take you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we connected. And you were so wise and so insightful that I remember I think after we were done the podcast and we were chatting, I said to you, hey, you should be on your own podcast because you have a lot to say about this topic. So that's how we got to be here today. So hello to all of Carolina's listeners. My name's Jackie Woodside. I'm also an author, speaker, and coach. And I think Carolina has so much to offer to the world and to people that I was the one that suggested I interview her about her thoughts on this topic. Yeah, of Beyond the Hustle. So that's what we're going to do. So thank you for the opportunity to do this. I've never had a podcast before, so I feel kind of important that you let me do this with you. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you. It's an honor to me as well, and I loved it when you suggested that because I would have never thought of it.
Right. Yeah, and you were a little shy about it. So I will tell your listeners that even though you do this all the time, for you being on the other side of the interview, you're feeling a little shy. So I'm just going to give you a big hug, virtual hug, and a lot of support, and just say you have a lot to say, and your listeners are really fortunate to have this time with you. So let's, tell all of your listeners and me. So how did you get started in this thing? What was the path that kind of led you to being such an epic podcaster and so committed to this topic?
I guess podcasting was on my mind for several years. Back in, I don't know, maybe 2012 or 13. I mean, 2012, 13 was when I kind of had my breakthrough in my business.
Great.
I had quit my job in 2010 and I was like on to the adventure of being independent and, leaving the paycheck to paycheck life. And it wasn't easy at the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's not, for sure. Anybody that tells you that it is not telling the truth.
Yeah, it's still not easy today. So yeah. And I think back then I was already listening to a couple of podcasts, but I thought it was hard to do. So I started with video. I felt like video was easier. So with video is how I've been communicating what I do and teaching people around the world about marketing, social media, about like you said before, showing people how to design their life, starting a business on the internet, because that was like my dream, to really just take my laptop and go anywhere in the world, or even just stay at home, and being able to work with it and make money from it. And then after I started making some money, then it became more of a, okay, how can I actually make an impact, not just for myself, but help other people. And then I started venturing into a few different business opportunities and started creating my own brand as well. Nice. And I realized I had something to offer, that people were connecting with me, even though I was just being myself. I've never tried to pretend to be something I'm not, or to how some people overproduce themselves a little too much when they create content. I try to keep it as real as I can. Just okay, is my hair all right? All right, that's it.
Right, good enough. I'm keeping it simple.
Exactly, keeping it simple so that people see that it doesn't take all that much production or changing who you are,
right,
to start impacting other people's lives and creating a business. And then I think I started to really take the podcast thing seriously when I saw so many people around me starting podcasts, and people started inviting me to some of their podcasts, and I thought I should have one. And then I started mine in January of 2018, so it's less than 2 years ago. And like I was telling you before we started, it's been hard to keep up with the schedule. I don't really have a huge amount of downloads or anything, but my goal was really to have another outlet to express, my message, and also to bring my audience closer to people that I myself admire. So most of the people I interview are people that that I admire. And then suddenly people started also requesting, hey, I saw your podcast. I have somebody who's great for your podcast, a great fit. That's how you got into my podcast. And
Right.
I'm glad
Somebody
that
reached out.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I realized, hey, this is a real thing. So I'm still doing it now.
So you just said something that I think is important for us to talk about, that it does take a lot of time, a lot of planning. You got to stay out ahead of it. It's a lot of focus and effort and energy to create a podcast and your content. So what's your why? What's the passion behind this that drives you to want to spend your time and energy this way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have learned a lot from the people I've interviewed. And it's really fun interviewing people. Like, of course, I'm not a journalist. I never really had any training in interviewing anyone. I just really try to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
And I became very passionate about that, because you discover things about life, about business. Like sometimes with a certain guest, I expect it to go one way and it goes a different way. And it usually turns out to be great. And so the few people, like the few listeners that I have who are listening to this hopefully now, when somebody reaches out and says, hey, I listened to this interview, actually your interview, I got a couple of people like thanking me for it.
Nice.
So for me, even if 1, 2, 3 people tweet me or message me or email me and say, hey, this episode was great, I learned so much, and that keeps me going. I don't need 100 million comments or whatever.
And what is it that you most want people to learn or walk away from having been around you in your podcast or any part of your work, really?
Yeah, I mean, from any of the content I put out there, I just want people to mostly get inspiration and I guess the confidence and courage to pursue their dream life. Yeah. And to realize that it's not impossible, because I've done some stuff that most people would say can't be done. A few things I've done, the people come and tell me, hey, the marketing industry is just, it's so filled with men. How did you do it, right? And it's
how'd you
true.
make your space? Yeah.
I mean, like, you look at a marketing event, you look at the speakers, there's always like 2 women and 15 men.
Right.
So it's not easy really for women to get into this stuff.
So how did you do it? How did you carve your space in this male dominated field?
Yeah, well, first of all, thankfully, I've never felt inferior in any way for being a woman.
Good. Because you're not?
Yeah, I know I'm not, but
it's your superpower.
Yeah, I know that I'm not, but I see a lot of women around the world who feel that way or are made feel that way by others. And I didn't have the perfect childhood or anything, but even in school or university or at my job, I was never felt discriminated against because I was a woman. I never felt like somebody thought I was less smart or anything,
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm grateful for that, because I know a lot of women are exposed to that.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky, I guess, grateful for it. And so that helped. And then that gave me also the confidence to, whenever I talk to people, I treat everybody as I would like to be treated, I guess,
Sure.
with respect.
So what you're saying basically is because you never had a belief that you weren't as good as the men or that women couldn't own this space. In some ways, because you never believed that, you never saw it. If there was any kind of put down or discrimination around you, you probably just wouldn't see it.
Exactly.
You didn't have that filter. So, your belief really did kind of help create the energy that you wanted going forward.
Yeah, in a way that I think that sums it up, that I never had that feeling, and if it happened, I didn't even realize.
Right, you didn't even see it. Yeah. If you don't believe it's happening, it won't happen around you, because even if it does, you don't see it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So and I guess it's also been the people that I've met through the years. Whenever I've been to networking events, whenever I've applied to speak at a certain event, they've always made me feel very welcome and
nice.
Very good. Like they want to hear me because of what I know, because of my story. Right. And so that has helped a lot.
Yeah, and we need more women in this space.
I
I think
agree.
women bring such a unique perspective on the relationship aspect of marketing. That marketing isn't just an exchange of information and money or something like that. It's actually a relationship that when people invest their time with you, that's really the most precious thing we all have, right? And that's
Hmm.
the beginning of a relationship. So it's lovely. One of the things I admire about you is that as a podcaster, you've had the opportunity to meet so many people from such diverse backgrounds and diverse expertise. So I'm curious, what impact has that had on you personally? Let's get personal beyond Carolina the marketer and podcaster, but what impact has that had on you personally to meet all these people and to hear their wisdom and their expertise over the years?
Well, quite a lot, because there are some people I've been able to meet that, make me feel, what's the expression? Starstruck, I guess.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah,
Ever since I was young, I've always had this, fanatic personality where I love a certain actor or a certain band, and I'll go out of my way to see them in a concert and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
So when I get to meet them, it's like, wow, like it really makes me feel grateful. And then when I became more of an adult and started to look up to other entrepreneurs, it was also like, I'm never gonna meet this person, or I'm never gonna be in the same room as this person, or if I email this person, are they gonna reply? And then when I realized that they are so kind and easygoing.
Nice. Who are some of those people that you had that experience with?
Well, Gary Vee, for starters.
Yeah.
Been following him for like, I don't know, 8 years now, 2011 or something. I remember I sent him a tweet back then. um, and then I was like, okay, I really want to connect with this guy. And I was able to see him at a conference, and I told him, hey, I'm at this conference where you're speaking. This was 3.5 years ago, a long time ago. And he replied and said, yeah, meet me at the lobby. I'm here. Like, what? Like, really? And
Wow.
I arrived there, and there were a couple of people there. He was almost waiting for me. Like,
Wow. That's awesome.
yeah. And then from there, I started building a relationship with him. It's not like we're friends or anything, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I was able to do 2 interviews with him, and yeah, whenever I meet him, he remembers me. And so for me, that's like, oh, that's so cool. And that that also inspires me to continue to
Yes.
to be myself. And so when people meet me, it's also the same thing. If somebody watches my videos and they meet me, they're like, oh, you're the same as your video, that's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's that's the same person. So it
Yeah,
has had
yeah.
a big impact. And then of course there are other people I'm still trying to, they're still on my dream board of people I want to interview, like Tony Robbins and people like that. But I no longer believe it's impossible like I
Good.
did 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it sounds like one of the impacts of having this podcast is that it's really increased your confidence.
In a way, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Any nuggets, anything that you feel like, or a few nuggets that you feel like you've learned from the people that you've interviewed over the years? Like what sticks out in your mind that you've learned?
Hmm. Well, I'm trying to think of something specific. um I don't know. I mean, I usually ask questions that I want to know.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes I ask my audience if they have a few questions, but I don't know. I mean, I think from every person I've interviewed, I've learned something. I can't pinpoint something right now, but
Yeah, yeah, but the impact on your life has just really been constant and profound to elevate you and so that you're more aware and more confident in doing the work that you do.
yeah. So, for example, I mean, from your interview, I really enjoyed when we discussed everything about raising your consciousness, and we did
Yeah,
talk a little bit about money
yeah.
and all that stuff. So I think if I had next to me the list of people I've
Yeah,
interviewed,
you could pull out
I
something
could
from
pull
every
out something.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but I mean, in general, like, I think every interview I try to ask people, not just, I always love hearing their story, but I try to ask things that I know the audience will learn something that they can
Mhm.
implement, in their life or business.
Yeah, yeah. So that leads me to the next question. What impact do you want to have on your audience? what do you really want them to walk away with from having spent their time with you on your podcast?
Well, I guess I want people to feel empowered, to feel like, oh, I just, what I just heard or watched, if they watch a video or they listen to a podcast, those people are regular people. They've done this. I can do it.
Yeah.
I want people to feel inspired, empowered to go after what they really want, and of course to get something of value, and not like oh, I just heard some really nice stories. Because I've been to seminars where people tell a lot of really nice stories, and they can be inspiring stories, but I didn't take any notes because they didn't give me anything actionable.
No
But
real takeaways.
Exactly, no real takeaway that I can go home and do. But just a nice story. So I try to combine the two in a way so that people can hear an inspiring story, but at the same time get something actionable. So I think that's what I want people to take away, something they can do, even if it's small, even if it's just going to help them 5%. It's something.
Yeah. It's everybody has a contribution to make. And the more, and what I admire about what you're doing is you're pulling together so many people who are making little bits of contribution, or big bits of contribution in their lives, touching other people, teaching that on your podcast, and then the people that you bring to your podcast get that benefit in a greater and greater way. It's awesome.
Exactly.
What I keep hearing in you is a real value of self-empowerment. That you're not necessarily in the like, let's just be in the feel good camp, and inspiration is good, but I really want people to know, I want people to have the tools, I want people to have the skills that they can really go out and change their lives. And you've done that. You were one of those people that went from the corporate grind to having the job to following your dream, getting through the ugly first few years that all of us entrepreneurs go through. And now you're, like you said, you had a breakthrough a few years ago and you're enjoying that success. So you do have that sense of self-empowerment and confidence that you bring to people. How would you say you developed that?
Well, that's a good question, because I've always been very shy, and I was not a confident teenager. As a child I was, but then when I turned 12 or 13, the worst years of your life, probably.
Right. I have a 14-year-old son. I'm in the middle of that now.
I think it's the worst. That was hard, the usual, I like this boy in school, he doesn't like me back, or stuff like that. I didn't feel pretty, I didn't feel a lot of things, but again, not because other people brought me down, but it was mostly myself. And the standards out there are just crazy, so I didn't feel like I was worthy of those standards. So it wasn't until I had probably my first boyfriend or something that I felt, oh, okay, so people might like me for who I am. and then university was also really hard for me. Any public speaking for me as a teenager and early and young adult was really hard. Whenever I had to present in front of the class, I would get so nervous.
Wow, and look at you now, podcaster in front of the whole world. Anybody has access to you. That's amazing.
I know, and
now you speak at conferences too, right?
I do. Not a whole lot, not as much as I would like. I only do like maybe 4 times a year, but hopefully next year I get more.
That's great.
But I love public speaking now. But I mean, the first time I did it, I stepped on a stage to do a public speech, I was shaking. It was 2012, I think. And I was so nervous in front of 400 people. And
Your first gig was in front of 400 people?
Yeah.
Most people start a little smaller than that, just letting you know.
I've heard, but yeah, it was so scary. I did have great content, but I was shaking and my voice was breaking, and I had gotten sick the night before, which didn't help.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I mean, if you ask me like how did I develop the confidence that I have now, in a way it was practice. Like they invite, hey, we'd love for you to speak at this event, and I was like, okay, I'll just do it. I didn't know what I was getting
Yeah.
myself into.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I started doing a lot more YouTube videos as well, which also helped.
Okay.
Even if, when you do a YouTube video, it's just a camera, but some people are even more scared of a camera than 400
That's
people.
me. Put me on a stage with 400 people and I'm fine. Put me in front of a camera, my mind goes blank.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. I
For
call
me,
it going into the dumb air. I go in the dumb air. I got nothing to say.
oh,
Put me on a stage, I'll go all day.
it's funny. I've heard a few people say the exact same thing. For me,
Yeah.
I don't get scared at all by the camera anymore. I did at some point, but then practice, and then
Yeah.
public speaking. I always get a little bit nervous, but now I got it figured out. I don't get shaky and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it was mostly practice, and also the feedback that I got most of the time was positive.
Good.
Negative feedback still affects me. I feel bad when I get a negative feedback,
Sure.
but I get more positive than negative, so that's great.
Nice. Hey, so I want to pull out something to highlight that you're not saying because you're just living it and you can't see it. But before you were able to practice, you had to have the willingness to say yes. You had to have the courage to say yes, the willingness to say yes, the willingness to go someplace that you didn't necessarily know or feel comfortable with. And, if I had to kind of boil down the entrepreneur's path, I would say that's it. I don't really know this very well. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. I hope I can do this okay, but I'm here, I'm willing, I'm going to show up. And from there, you learn, you get experiences and you practice. But without your willingness to show up and say yes and get on the court rather than thinking about it, that's the heart of being an entrepreneur.
Exactly. Like I said, they invited me. I said, sure.
And most people don't do that, Carolina. The courage and the fortitude, the wisdom, the willingness that you're demonstrating by being like, okay, sure, fine, I'll show up. I do the same thing, by the way. It's like, okay, I'm one of the leap and then let's figure it out kind of people.
Me too.
I've had clients over the years that they have to have every single thing in place. It's like, my God, paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of that. And it sounds like you are as well,
yeah.
And then that will appear.
I learned that the hard way as well with the analysis paralysis thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm more of the people that will say yes. Of course, I follow my gut, right? If my gut says, say no, then maybe I'll say no. But if I say yes to something like that, hey, let's do a webinar together, or hey, let's do an event together, or hey, you want to speak at this event? And I have no idea what I'm going to talk about yet, right? I'm like, I'll say yes, and that will put the pressure on me to come up with what I'm going to talk about.
Then you got to go figure it out. Yeah.
I go figure it out. If I need to investigate a little bit, I'll do it. And sometimes I'll be modifying my slides the same day of the presentation.
Yeah, I know that feeling well.
Yeah.
But then I remember that I emailed it to the event producer 2 days ago, and now it's too late. It's set in stone, and
that's why I avoid that. Like, I avoid it as much as I can. Hey, I'll just bring my own laptop.
I'll bring my laptop. Yeah.
I don't like it when they ask for the slides. Like, hey, can you send the slides a month in advance? I'm like,
I know. Doesn't that drive you nuts?
It
like,
drives
who
me
does
nuts.
their slides a month in advance? You can't even think straight until about 48 hours before the event.
That's what I'm saying. Some events are so strict with that, and I usually get away with not doing that and sending them the day before.
All right. So you're a rule breaker. See all these things that your listeners are learning about you. So, you're a little bit of a front runner, but a rule breaker as well.
Depends on what rules, honestly. Like, for example, if I'm hiking somewhere and it says, do not pass, do not cross, or whatever, I'll respect those rules. I'm very respectful of those.
And is that because it's your physical safety that's at stake? Does that have to do with it?
No, not necessarily. I don't know. I guess I for things like that, and then I see people cross anyway, it makes me angry. It says do not pass.
Respecting nature, respecting the space for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, when I know it's rules that are not going to really affect anyone, yeah, I'm okay. Like, hey, it's not going to affect you that I send you my slides.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
But maybe if I do,
plug them in.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, it's not going to make any difference.
No.
You've got to let your creative juices flow when they flow, not on their timetable.
That's what I'm saying. And usually I get the most done and the best part of my presentations the day before or the same morning.
Exactly. I mean, there really is a change in your brain chemistry when you're getting closer to the event and your adrenaline kicks in, because you know it's like it's not 2 months off, it's in 48 hours. And you really do think more clearly and more creatively closer to the event. And so all of you event planners
Exactly.
out there, you need to learn that fact for us. So you've done a lot of work with your podcast and your, you know, your conference speaking and the, you know, the social media marketing work that you've done. What's your bigger why? Like, what's your hope for the world that kind of drives you, pushes you, and motivates you to do these uncomfortable things? Say yes when your body is screaming no, you know, you don't want to do this. What's your bigger why?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are moments where I'm like, oh, why did I say yes to this?
Right, me too. I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate being
I
a
hate
public
that.
speaker for about the 24 hours before I'm on stage, and then I love it from there. But
Yeah.
that little last window is just like, I hate this. Why am I doing this?
What, yeah, why am I doing this to myself? But anyway, um, but yeah, I mean, some of the things I've learned from people like Tony Robbins is, okay, how do I try to get myself out of myself, right? And focus on what I can do for other people, right? So that
Right.
helps sometimes, not always, but it helps. But like I said before, like, I really want to be able to leave some kind of positive impact, even if it's just a small group of people or a large group of people. I want to make sure that if people listen to me or watch my content, that it brings them something valuable, whether it's happiness or actionable business advice or marketing advice, and that hopefully that will make their lives better.
Yeah.
And I just want to inspire people with my story, because you know, I shared with you with my mom's passing recently, and that was like it was a 7-year journey with my mom's cancer. And that when she got diagnosed, that's when when my business kind of started to take off, because I felt that need to help my family, like, oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be expensive, I want to help. And then I did a lot of research about non-toxic therapies that extended her life that long, otherwise she would have been
Oh,
long gone. So when I share that with people, a lot of people also get inspiration from that. Even though it's a personal aspect of my life, it fueled part of my mission, and
yeah.
um, it also fueled my business too.
Yes.
So I want people to get that inspiration, to see that I'm just as human as they are. Because I see other people displaying this perfect lifestyles on Instagram, and like, oh, nothing bad ever happens to them, everything is perfect and the best filter. And I am trying to get away from that and
Yeah.
show them that, hey, you don't need the mansion or the yacht or whatever. You don't need all those things to be happy or to consider yourself successful. You define what success means to you. If success means, hey, I can stay home and not go to a job, that's it, that's success to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that's
pick
what
up
I
my
want
kids
to.
at school every day, you know,
Yeah,
I'm home to have dinner with my family. Like, some of those things are really what makes for a well-lived life.
exactly. And some people take that for granted, and they think that success is, you know, oh, I have to have all these millions and this big house and cars. And it's I think it's beyond that.
Yeah.
It's about the small things, about, like you said, hey, I can bring my kids to school, and then I can pick them up and I can be there, and
Right.
that's the success, you know. So
It-
that's what I want to
Absolutely.
inspire people to do, you know, achieve whatever success means to them.
Mm.
And
Well, I'm really inspired by your story about your love and devotion and commitment to your mom, and that your research actually extended her life so that you had your mom longer. You know, you're a young woman to have already lost your mom. I know that was a big impact on you this summer, and will be, you know, for the rest of your life.
it will be, yes.
It's you know, I also believe that because you are a public person and you just share yourself authentically, that that's really going to help a lot of people to know that even in the face of, you know, that really challenging situation, you can still stand up, deliver your best self, and teach other people through those learning experiences and those tragedies that we all have and that we all bear.
Exactly.
So what's the last thing you want to leave people with, like if you had to leave with a bit of inspiration or just a tidbit of wisdom for people, what love do you want to share with your listeners today?
Well, first thing is for people to remember that they are worthy of whatever dream they have. Like so many people think they don't deserve what they want. Like this is never going to happen for me because XYZ. Right?
Right. That's good for somebody else, but that couldn't happen to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's sad that so many people feel that way. That they have it good. That's never going to be me.
Right.
And the other thing is to stop comparing. When I compare myself, I still do it sometimes. It's hard to avoid. I guess it's a human thing, but I realize when I compare myself to other people, I usually feel bad. It doesn't take you anywhere to compare yourself.
Right down that rabbit hole.
Exactly. And just compare yourself to yourself. Where were you last month, a year ago?
Yep. Am I in a better place now than I was a year ago?
Exactly. And if you're not, then it's in your control to fix that, and nobody else's. But if you're comparing yourself constantly to other people, there's not much you can do. They're going to keep doing their thing. You're not going to be able to stop them or get to their level tomorrow. Use them as inspiration instead of comparing yourself. Oh, that's great. They were able to do that. Like, that's what I want people to get from me. Like, instead of comparing themselves to me, which some people do, and I'm like, I don't have anything going for me that you don't. First of all, I don't live in a huge rich country. I don't live in a poor country either. I'm just in South America, Chile. I guess it's a good place to be, but I could have had it way better somewhere else maybe. But don't think that because I have achieved something, I have some kind of privilege. Like you have the same opportunity, the same choices that you could make for yourself. And it's all up to you. And loving yourself is going to take you much farther.
It's beautiful. We're all only defined by our circumstances to the degree to which we allow that to be the case. And you've been one of those people that, you've not been defined by your circumstances, whether it was leaving your job or going through those rough couple of years of an entrepreneur, or living in a country that's not as developed as the US. And even this experience of your mom being ill, you chose how you were going to be about that. And that's, what was Viktor Frankl says, our last true freedom is our freedom to choose our own way. And you are an excellent example of that.
Thank you.
So thank you for having me on your show. And we'll have to do another show again. We'll do another interview on your podcast where I'll put you back in the driver's seat and you can grill me with the questions next time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But thank you for letting me do this, Carolina. You have so much to offer. And, I just think about all the people's lives that you touch through your work and the people that you bring together and the teaching that you do. It's an honor to be your colleague and to work together with you. So let's do this again real soon, okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie, for the suggestion, for taking the time to talk to me, and all your wise words. Always appreciate it. I really look forward to doing something else together. Maybe, who knows, maybe one day we meet somewhere.
That would be cool. Somewhere between Chile and the US. I would love that. All right, you take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.